Oh, if I could just have the silver bullet and tell you exactly the recipe to wake up a JW, wouldn't that be something valuable? So many people ask me, well, how do you do this? How do you wake somebody up? I mean, there's so many people that would love to just have this recipe written down of what it's needed in order to wake somebody up. Well, this is a real challenge and it's not an easy thing to do. But let me share with you some thoughts of my own and why in some cases I was successful and sometimes not successful when it comes to opening mind of Jehovah's Witness. Well, here's the thing. This is what I believe. I believe that when it comes to trying to convince somebody that they're not in the right religion or to show them the flaws of the religion, you should definitely put an effort when it comes to the household, your own household, your spouse and your children. And that's pretty much it. Children are your responsibility. And when it comes to your spouse, you should simply put an effort, but that doesn't mean they're going to wake up. And you should love them and care about them and not treat them any differently just because they disagree with you. Just like you want to be accepted for whatever it is that you believe in, for whoever you are as a person, you should give the same courtesy to your spouse. Is there more to your connection and your marriage than just a religion? Unfortunately, for many people, especially Jehovah's Witnesses, religion was like the number one thing that was connecting people. And outside of that, they have very little in common. So when that is gone, or when the religion is gone, is no longer connecting them, many marriages fall apart. However, many people do stay together, and I hope that your marriage will survive. But let's say you want to influence your partner or your children or whoever, and try to open their eyes to the things that are simple for you now, but when you are in it, it's almost like the mind is blocked, completely blocked. So, couple of things. Number one, what I tell everyone, because everybody's like, well, there's something that I got to tell them, maybe about the child molestation, maybe about the 607, maybe about the 1914, maybe there's something, that woke me up, and I'm going to tell them, and I'm going to see if I use logic, if I use the scriptures, if I use historical evidence, they will definitely see the things that I see. How's that working for you? I don't know about you, but most people, no matter how much logic you bring to the table, how many scriptures you bring to the table, they just bring more of their own thoughts and beliefs, and they defend with their own logic and perspective, and it becomes like a ping-pong conversation. And very often, especially if emotions are involved, people walk away from that kind of conversation even with a stronger conviction that they are in the right religion instead of less. So here's what I say. The only thing that you have to convince a Jehovah's Witness, the only thing, is that you have their best interest at heart. Before you start discussing any doctrines, any mistakes, any problems that you see with the organization, you must, absolutely must, prove to them that you have their best interests at heart. Without this, you are wasting your time. You are just causing damage, nothing else. I guarantee you, without this one aspect, you're going to create a wall and you're going to burn that bridge, and you might not have more than one chance to talk to them about this. How do you prove to them that you have your best interests at heart? Well, you have to develop rapport. You have to talk about things that are in connection with between you and them, things that you have in common, things that you both believe in, things that you can compliment them on. That's how you develop rapport. However, most of the stuff is not coming through words. They will believe you. They will believe you that you're speaking the truth, that it comes from your heart based on your tone of voice, how you say it. It's 100 times more important than what you say. Because what you say, especially when you're a little nervous, it could be a little bit choppy. You might not hit the right words, not the right questions you ask. But when you're saying even the best words with the wrong tone of voice, accusing, mocking, making fun of, I guarantee you it will not work. But when you're showing that you have your best interests at heart, their best interests at heart, that you care about them. And the reason why you're speaking to them, because you can see that they are going to be hurt unless you share with them what you believe is right. And when they feel it, they have to feel it, and they will feel it because of the tone of voice that you use and because of the facial expressions that you're gonna use. Your body language and your tone of voice will tell them whether you really mean it. Are you looking them straight in the eyes, or are you looking at the ceiling? Those things we pick up. We all do. We all do. I can give you an example. Two people come to your door. You don't know who they are, and they smile, and they start telling you how wonderful garden of yours, and they see the flowers, and you have such a beautiful place. You don't even know who they are, but guess what? Through their facial expressions and through their tone of voice, you know very well they're there to sell you something, and you're already feeling it in your gut that there's something up, and they're just telling you things to butter you up for a sale or to get you involved with something. And we all know it, and we all feel it. We all feel other people's intentions because they come across through our tone of voice and through our facial expressions. And it's very important. So before you start the conversation, you have to get inside yourself and say, you know what is my intent? Truthfully, what is my intent? Is my intent to help that person genuinely, or is my intent to prove them wrong, to prove that I am right, that what I've learned is smart because I know now the truth about the truth, and they're just brainwashed and they're just blind? With that attitude, there is no chances for you to wake them up. You have to prove to them that you have their best interests at heart. And at the same time, you have to prove to them that you are okay with the fact that they will remain Jehovah's Witnesses, that you love them for who they are, not for what they believe in. That is the key, because it's a concept that most Jehovah's Witnesses don't understand, don't know it, because they have to love people who are just like them. They have a hard time even grasping the concept that they could actually love somebody outside of the organization, especially those who left. That concept is unknown to them because you're supposed to hate those who left the organization. So now, if you questioning, they literally programmed into believing that you are their enemy. And in order to break from that belief, it will come through your tone of voice, it would come through your facial expressions, and it will come to what you say. What you say actually has the least influence on them. However, what I would strongly recommend is you start thinking about questions, not so much of what to say, but as much as what to ask. Remember when we were going door to door and we met maybe a Catholic person, did we bring out, oh, you're a Catholic? Let me tell you about all the pedophile cases among the priests and all the baptisms of the babies and how, they go and kiss the bishop in the ring. And is that how we talked? Not a chance. Not a chance. We knew that doesn't work. We knew that by doing that, you just create enemies and people will shut the door and they'll just say, oh, those evil Jehovah's Witnesses. We knew that very well. But now all of a sudden, when we leave Jehovah's Witnesses, we're thinking, yeah, we're just going to bring out all the dirt to the surface and that's going to work. No, it's not. It's not. But we had this idea when we were going door to door. Guess what? We had an Awake magazine. Yes, we were going door to door thinking, we just got to wake people up because we're the only one awake. The whole world is lying of power of the wicked one and they're all sleeping, and we have to tell them that we have the recipe. We know exactly what to do and what not to do in order to survive the Armageddon, and we were going to wake people up and bring them into the organization. Then you leave and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Now I realize I was the one sleeping. And it's my turn now to wake people up in the organization. And you're just switching from one to another, but you haven't done much of a progress. The truth is, everybody has a right to believe whatever it is that they believe in. We have people all over us, all around us. And what? Are you going to go to every Muslim, every Catholic, every Hindu, every Jew, and point out the problems that they have in their own religion? Or you're accepting everybody else except the Jehovah's Witnesses. It just doesn't make sense. I'm all for spreading awareness. Don't get me wrong. It is very important. But the moment you start pushing your beliefs on other people, guess what? They're going to push back 100%. And this is why it's so important to realize that, you know what? Acceptance, tolerance, respect, and love is the only way to win people over. It's the only way. Because if they see you being resentful and angry and bitter and mocking, you're just going to create enemies. So you have to prove to them that you're not like that you care about them, and there is something that you know that if you don't tell them, you will never forgive yourself. I remember there was one person that just they never want to talk to me. They're like, I know we're working together, and they know they left, and they know that they heard some news about me being an apostate. But truthfully, I never talked to them about this. And I'm like, what? Let's see. And I talked to them about the blood issue. And the only way I talked to them, I was like, listen, first, let's address the fears. And he said, I want to tell you something, but to be honest, I'm a little concerned. I'm afraid, to be honest with you, to tell you something. Like, well, you don't have to be afraid to tell me. I'm your friend, right? Like, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid that you will react in a certain way that you might really damage the friendship. But on the other hand, if I don't tell you, I don't think I can live with myself knowing that I didn't tell you and you could get hurt without that knowledge. Now I really got their attention. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to know. I said, well, I wanted to know, what is your stand on the blood issue and the blood fractions? And the reason why I like that subject is because blood fractions is the only subject where Jehovah's Witness is allowed to think for themselves. It actually says in their watchtower that says, this is your personal choice. Not anybody else's. It's your personal conscience that should decide whether you're going to take fractions or not. So they are allowed to discuss this. I said, well, I wanted to know what you're standing. And the person said, well, I'm to be honest, I don't really understand that subject. It's quite complicated. And I wanted to do a little bit more studying about this, but I didn't, right? I'm like, okay, well, here's what really bothers me, right? And I expressed certain things that I find it very odd when it comes to the blood fractions and the blood transfusion and the scriptures. And basically that subject is one of my favorites, to be honest with you, because it's very easy for me to show that I care about that person, right? Whether somebody believes in 607 or not, that has very little to do with me caring about them, right? But a blood issue is, because there could be a life and death. And I wanted to make sure that I show to that person that, you know what, I truly care how you feel about this, because, you know, I personally didn't understand the subject, but once I dug into this, I found out that there was a lot more than what the Watchtower teaches us, and the pieces of information that we're missing, you know, it truly opened my eyes on some stuff that I was not aware of. Now that could work, it could not work, but it worked in that case because I proved to that person that I have their best interests at heart. So they wanted to know, and they started asking me questions. What did you find out? What is it that you were afraid of telling me? How did that change your mind? And once they start asking those questions, then you can express more and more what you have in mind. However, that doesn't mean necessarily they're going to wake up, but it opens up the conversation, because once they see that you have their best interests at heart, they might start asking more questions. And throughout the conversation, here's what is very important to ask. You ask the person this: what convinces you that this is a true religion? What convinces you personally that this is the true religion? Why is this so important? It's so important to ask this because although we were all Jehovah's Witnesses believing the same things, but we were in the religion for different reasons. We all had different reasons why we were there. Some people were there because they saw the love and unity among the so-called brothers and sisters. Some people believed because they saw how much studying of the Bible is done. Some people are like, oh, well, this is the only nation that uses Jehovah's name. And there's another person that will say, oh, you know what? This is a true religion because of the preaching work. Everybody has their own reason why they're in it. And unless you know the reason, you could be discussing something that convinced you, but does not necessarily mean it convinces them. So if you ask, what convinces you that this is the truth, they will tell you. And after they will tell you, you have to follow up with a second question that says, well, if they didn't do this, would you still believe that they're true religion? So if somebody says, well, I believe because they're using Jehovah's name, they sanctify Jehovah's name. And then you say, well, if they didn't use God's name as Jehovah, if they just use it as most of the other churches out there, would you believe that this is still a true religion? And if they say no, then you know the key. You know the key to their mind. You know the key to their heart. This is called a silver bullet. When you find that out, you have to become an expert in that one field. Everything else will be a domino effect. With Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not a little bit of every subject out there. With Jehovah's Witnesses is one subject that convinces them that this is the truth. You knock that one down, and everything else becomes a domino effect. That's how it is with their mind. Because the moment you crush that one subject, it's, oh, if this is wrong, what else is wrong? See, when I was Jehovah's Witness, I knew exactly, well, I was convinced that the doctrines are true. I was convinced. There were certain things that I had as question mark, but the majority of them things I believed. But when I saw that they came up with this overlapping generation, I started questioning, why would they change this? What was the purpose of it? It's not like they discovered another scripture in the Bible. It's like, oh, a new light. No, they changed it with an agenda. They changed it not because an angel came from heaven and told them, hey, you guys are making a mistake here. There was a reason. And once I start thinking about that reason, it was like one, then another, and then just domino effect started happening. It's very important to figure it out, what is the convincing subject for that person. Now, some people is because of the belief. Some people is because of the community. So in many cases, especially I believe among women who really need that kind of a community, and they're very social and they love the congregation and they have a lot of friends there, it is much harder to wake them up with doctrines. Because that was the case between me and my wife. So I woke up because I realized that the doctrines are false. And I'm like, well, I'm a very authentic person. I cannot go and teach this if I don't believe it's true. But when it comes to my wife, she was like, well, I don't care if the doctrines are not accurate. No church has all the doctrines accurate. You're not going to go to another church. You're going to find, well, the priest that will say things that you're going to agree with 100%. Not a chance. We're already here. We already have the community. We have an amazing congregation. We have a family. We love everybody. Everybody loves us. Where are we going to go? See, there is something in our mind that causes us to take action, and it's called pain and pleasure. Our subconscious mind constantly is asking this one question and one question only. Does this mean pain or does this mean pleasure? If it means pleasure, we want more of it. If it means pain, we want less of it. That's how it works. So our brain chooses constantly between pain and pleasure. Our conscious mind dictates through our beliefs and values what things mean. Do they mean pain or do they mean pleasure? That's why two people can be in exactly the same situation, experiencing exactly the same things, but through their filter of beliefs and values, they will interpret the situation as painful or pleasurable. So one person will say, hey, let's go skydiving. And another person is like, oh yeah, no problem. It matches their beliefs. It matches their values. They love adventure. They love uncertainty, adrenaline rush. That will equal pleasure to them, right? But another person is like, not a chance. I'm terrified of heights. That would be the ultimate pain for me, right? And then the brain says, no, you're not doing that. When do Jehovah's Witnesses leave? Every single Jehovah's Witness left the organization at that one moment, in the moment of one decision. It became more painful to stay than to leave. I'll repeat that again. Every single one of us who left the religion left the moment our subconscious mind said it will be more painful for you to stay than for you to leave, because we associated first pain of leaving. And then we decided, hey, you know what? Maybe being a PMO is okay, physically in and mentally out. So I stay in, I'll stay with my family. I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm going to pretend I believe. It is less painful for me to stay in than to leave. I have nothing outside. I have no friends outside. I have no community outside. I got no place to go. I got nothing outside this organization. So if I leave and everybody's going to shun me, it's going to be too painful. So the decision is I'm staying in. I remember that was my first decision. I decided to stay in, and I stayed in for many years, as a matter of fact, because it was too painful to leave. The price was too high. I thought, you know what? I know I'm not comfortable. I know I'm suffering. However, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the sake of children, for the sake of my wife. But there was literally one moment, and one moment only, when I realized, hey, you know what? I am not helping my kids. I am harming them in the long term. And when I heard their voices 10 years from now, and they're married to JWs, maybe with children, and they're waking up and telling me, hey, Dad, what the heck? Why did you lie to us? We woke up now and we could have waken up a decade ago, 15 years later. You're telling me what's going on? How could you? How could you lie to us like this? And now we have to go through this with our spouses, with our children. How are we going to do this? And when I heard their voices talking to me like this, I'm like, holy smoke. I don't care what price I'm going to pay. This will not happen. It has to stop. And it has to stop with me. And it became more painful to stay in than to take the hit and leave. That is a moment for every single person. So remember, for most JWs, no matter what you tell them, they're associating pleasure of being in the religion and pain of leaving. Now, your job is to switch this. And you're not only telling them about the bad things in the religion causing pain of staying, but it's extremely important to show these people that the life outside can truly be magnificent. That the love they can experience outside of the religion is unconditional love that they have not experienced being inside. That there's people who will love them and care about them a lot more than those inside the religion, because they no longer care what they believe in, and they can be different, and they can have their own voices, they can have their own opinions and their own beliefs, and they will not be treated differently. They will no longer have this fear of, oh, if I disagree with you, you're going to reject me. And that's a reality for most Jehovah's Witnesses. You can experience love and friendship on so much deeper level than that of Jehovah's Witnesses. They have to understand it. They have to feel it. So you have to replace it, not only show what's wrong with being there, but also what's better out. How you can have a purposeful life when your purpose now is much greater than the purpose you had before, because before you were serving a delusion. And now you can truly make a difference. Instead of telling people, oh, you know what? There will be a time in paradise when God will fix everything and Jesus will come, and no matter what the problem is, don't worry, it will be solved. No, you get to solve those problems right now. If there's people who are hungry, there's people who are suffering, there's people who are sick, there are people who need your help, even mentally, even people who need someone to talk to. You can be that person for them, regardless of their religion. And that is the beautiful part. If anything from the Bible that I truly love and still cherish is the story of a Good Samaritan. It's an amazing story when Jesus says, you know what? Not the person who is of your religion, not the person who is on a high privilege, like the priest or Levite who were passing by the Jew who was beat up. Not those are your neighbor. It's like literally telling a Jehovah's Witness, hey, you know what? There was a JW beat up on the road, and there was a circle overseer that was going to a congregation to give a talk, and he passed by this brother and did nothing. And there was an elder that passed by him and did nothing. But an apostate came and took care of the JW. And he took him to a hospital and he paid for all his expenses. Who is your neighbor? That story is so extraordinary because basically Jesus said, hey, it doesn't matter what the religion that you have is. What matters is how people treat you. So who is your neighbor? Who is your brother? The person who has the same religion or the person who treats you as a human? And that is a key lesson. And Jehovah's Witnesses use this example so often, and yet they can't see it. But when you show that, when you truly show that love, that level of commitment to other humans, and no matter what they believe in, they will be accepted and loved. And just because somebody is abusive doesn't mean we have to accept it. But what I mean is you accepting people no matter what they believe in, no matter what skin color they have, no matter what sexuality that they have. You don't prejudge them. You don't put a label on them. Oh, this person is a circle of overseer. This person is weak spiritually. This person is disfellowship. This person is fading. There's no need for labels in order to know how to treat one another. All what you need is to see that the person is a human, regardless of what they believe in. Are we going to judge people? Yes, of course. We're judging all the time, but we're judging not based on their sexuality, religion, or beliefs in the invisible world. We're judging based on how they treat us, based on their behavior, which is huge, just huge. And this is what they have to see, that there is a better world out there, because they've been told over and over again that the whole world is lying, the power of the wicked one, and that everything outside of the congregation is just evil and satanic and demonic and dangerous. And your job is to show that they can have a very meaningful life with friends who will love them, with purpose and identity that is much deeper and much better and much more fulfilling than the one of being a Jehovah's Witness, because they can't see it yet. And you might tell them a lot of things, but they want not see it unless you're walking your talk. That's another key. Nobody will follow you and your steps, and nobody will listen to you, will not convince anyone if they see that you're bitter and angry and your life is in pieces. Nobody. Why would they? If they have a great life living as a Jehovah's Witness and they see you being all angry and bitter, that's not a better life, that's a bitter life. Why would they exchange that? Think about it. You want to influence people, you first have to influence yourself. You have to have a life that they will want. They would look at your life like, hey, you know what? This person left and they're not crazy. They have a good life. They have a better life than me. They have true friends. They have, you just show them a path that it's more pleasurable than the life that they have as a witness, to show them that there is a better life. And then the freedom on itself is great. It's great, but it's only a first step. A lot of people are free, but they're miserable. They're free, but they're lonely. They're free, but they have no purpose in life. Free, but they feel like, you know what, they're very depressed. Nobody loves them. Freedom in itself is not the answer. Like, you gotta show with your own example that there is a better life. It's a key. Otherwise, they will not listen. It's just like somebody who's obese trying to tell somebody, hey, you know what? You got to eat healthy and exercise. It's just not going to work. I don't care if you're giving a good advice, but if you're not walking your talk, nobody will listen to you. So that is super important. Now, when you're discussing religious beliefs with people, instead of trying to figure it out what to tell them, what statements to make, try to figure it out what questions to ask. Questions They're so powerful. They stimulate people's minds to the point where sometimes one question that is unanswered opens the person's mind, and they will think. Most witnesses, most people, as a matter of fact, they change their mind, they change their opinion, they change their viewpoint when they're by themselves, not in the middle of a conversation. You ask them questions and you leave them with a question. Remember, that's what Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching all the time. They said, hey, when you go to a householder, you start a subject. At the end of the conversation, you throw a question and you say, next time we'll discuss this. Why? Why did they see this? Why did they advise this? Because they know that the moment you ask a question, the person will have to answer. Even if they don't verbally answer, in their mind, they'll have to. Even if you say not to think about something, let's do this. Don't think about color blue. I don't care what color you're thinking about. Please don't think about color blue. Do not think about color blue. Can you please not think about color blue? You can't. It's impossible. You ask a question, and the quality of question, the quality of answer will show up. What is a good question to ask Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, what if is a great mind-opening question. So if a Jehovah's Witness tells you something, instead of saying, yeah, but, it's a really bad expression. Yeah, but destroys everything. When we say, yeah, but, basically you're standing on the opposite. But if you say, well, what if there is more to this? What if there is additional information we don't know yet? What if there's more to the story? What if there's something we don't know yet? What if there's something they're not telling us? What if there's something they don't want us to know? Mind-opening questions. And guess what? You might have a conversation with them, and later on, they're going to sit at home and they're going to think, like, what if there is something more? What if they don't want me to know because they are hiding something? What is really out there? Why are they saying don't read this? Why are they saying don't check this? Why are they saying don't go and do your own research? Why are they saying those things? Is it possible that they're hiding something? See, it is much more powerful for you to ask the right questions so these people can start looking for answers. And in the conversation, if you see something is spinning there, pause. You ask a question and you pause. I know sometimes we get very excited. We're like, well, we ask a question. Oh, well, let me tell you, I already have the answer. No. You need to pause. You ask a question, you pause. Sometimes it's good not to answer the question, because the moment you answer the question is the moment they're going to start looking for a counter argument. You ask a question and you leave it and you start opening the person's mind. It's very, very important. But during the time, and I'll say this one more time, you have to constantly show that you're doing this for their best interest. If you're going to do this because you think you're right and they're wrong, and they're going to feel it, you're wasting your time. Please, if you're trying to wake up a Jehovah's Witness, remember that they have a right to live their life the way they want to live their life. They can believe whatever they want to believe. And you, by showing them that kind of love, that kind of acceptance, it's something that could open their mind. Many people who woke up, and when they talked to me, they said, the only reason why I'm talking to you, the only reason why we're having this conversation is because I don't see you being angry. Because you're kind a person, and they were expecting a bitter and angry person. One of the reasons why I woke up, to be honest with you, is because when I was reading Raymond Friend's book, I realized this guy's not bitter. I was expecting a really bitter XJW, and he wasn't. He was a loving and caring person, and he really came across through his words and how he expressed his feelings about the JWs. Even when we were going door to door, remember? The one thing that we always had to do is first compliment people, because that's how you develop rapport. You connect with people by saying, oh, you know, you're a Catholic, oh, you're a Christian. And it's great to find people who are a good believers. We would start with something that we have in common. And it's the same thing with Jehovah's Witnesses. You have to start on the common ground, not on differences, on things that you actually still cherish. And the best way of doing it, the best way of showing that you are not the enemy, is by complimenting them. Remember, for me, I use this example. If you want to show criticism, constructive criticism, it's like shaving your face. First, you put the shaving cream, which is a compliment, and then you use a razor. If you don't put the shaving cream and you start with a razor, ooh, you're gonna cause some damage. You're gonna feel it. And it's the same thing. If you want to do some constructive criticism by showing people there is something wrong with the way they think, you have to start with a compliment. Compliment shows that you're on their side. Compliment shows that you're trying to help. Now, they might disagree with you, but that's fine. At least you show that you're not their enemy. I hope that those things will help you to see how important it is to have a plan of action before you start talking to Jehovah's Witnesses, how important it is to give them the space and be patient. Be patient. It could take one conversation. I've seen that happening. And it could take 5-6 years. You don't know. And you'll never know until you try. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.